we go. Nice. Going in. Got the fire kit going in.
Hi folks, my name is Jason Hackforth. I make Superbiscuit hand planes here in Santa Cruz, California in what I call the Biscuit Lab. Today I want to do a rundown of my recent visit to the Kelly Slater Surf Ranch in Lemoore, California. I did a similar kind of video after my experience at the BSR cable park in Waco, Texas, and it seemed like some of you found it helpful. I've gotten a lot of questions about my visit to the surf ranch, so I figured instead of doing a written Instagram post, I would just do a video on it in hopes of detailing my experience and answering any of your questions. As usual, if you do have questions, feel free to drop them in the comments section. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and get into it. So by far the number one question I get asked is how did you get into the surf ranch? BSR in Texas is a pretty straightforward thing where you can go online and you can book sessions, $90 an hour, and then all you have to do is get yourself to Texas. With surf ranch, obviously it's a much different thing. I had been monitoring that place for a number of years, trying to figure out how I could get in there to body surf it. It seemed like the only way you could do it is if you were friends of the WSL or a pro surfer or famous, something along those lines. So I went to the first couple of contests that they held there. The first one was called the Founders Pro, and I think the second one was called like the Freshwater Pro or something like that, in an effort to try to recon the place and figure out how I was going to get in. I made friends with some of the folks who are on the water safety team, hoping that maybe they'd be able to get me an invite or something along those lines. But I was kind of barking up the wrong tree with that because they're not the gatekeepers. It's got to be either somebody within the WSL or Slater himself. I actually made Slater a hand plane and sent it to him, but never heard anything back regarding that. During the first contest, the Founders Cup, when I was there, I actually saw Kelly signing autographs to people, lined up. He was signing posters, and I figured that was as good of an opportunity as I was going to get. So instead of having him sign a poster, I had him sign this hand plane. You can see there. I asked him about the possibility of getting into body surf it, and he just kind of laughed, and that was pretty much it. So that avenue was kind of exhausted. A couple of years later, I discovered that there was a shop in Monterey, California called On the Beach Surf Shop, and I want to give thanks to Kelly Sorensen, who's the owner of On the Beach, for setting up the trips that he does, and that's how I was able to get in. Basically, he gets groups of people together to chip in to cover the cost. It's more expensive in the summertime, whereas in the winter they give you a discounted rate because the days are shorter and it's colder, obviously. Since I was going to body surf it, I asked Kelly Sorensen whether or not I could get like a half a spot, since basically I just wanted to sit on the end section and pick off that corner bowl. So he was able to get me kind of a half cost rate because of that, which amounted to be $1,900. So when I looked at it and did the math, I decided that I could probably sell that many hand planes in the course of a year. I went on December 1st of 2020, and I first started looking into this probably in November of 2019. So when I was looking at it, I was like, I basically have a year to try to sell that many hand planes to cover the cost, because I didn't really want to have to cover it out of my own pocket. I have a feeling that a lot of the people who go there do cover it out of their own pocket, but that's not my business. So basically, again, thanks to Mr. Sorensen, I was able to line up a spot, and December 1st, 2020 was my day, and it was a lot of fun. I don't see myself being able to go there again, doing it that route, because that's a good chunk of cash, and that money I think could be used for other things. But I just wanted to go there once and check it out, which I was able to do. So I was stoked on that. The next thing I wanted to cover is kind of the setup of the ranch. It's different than BSR. With BSR, you're booking 1 hour sessions, so you get there a little bit before. You gear up, you have your session, and then once you're done, you go on your way. With the ranch, you're there all day. You get there at about 7 o'clock. Um, there's kind of two or three buildings. There's the one that has all the surfboards where you change and keep all your gear. There's a different building that has kind of the kitchen and stuff, because they serve you breakfast, lunch, and dinner, which is all included in the price. So when you get there at 7, they give you kind of a water safety rundown, but also they go over how the wave works, how the sessions are going to work. It's on a priority system that's based on heats. So basically, my first heat was 10 o'clock. There were 6 other people in my heat, and I was going to be sharing waves with Mr. Sorensen, again, the owner of On the Beach. So I would either, take the top half of the wave, and then he would take the bottom half, or vice versa. I ended up getting about 10 waves. I missed 2 or 3. There was probably another 2 or 3 that I could have poached because people fell off. And if somebody's on the wave coming toward you and they fall off, it's well within your right, to turn and take off, and poach what's left of the wave. So I ended up doing that a few times, but there was a few opportunities that I missed. Basically, when you're in the basin, as they call it, you're spaced out according to the poles. The pool is 2,000 yards long by about 500 yards wide. Feet, sorry, 2,000 feet long. There are 100 poles, so basically the poles are 20 feet apart. And you'll sit at one spot, catch a wave, and then you either paddle back to where you were, or the guys on the jet skis will come and get you and take you to the under end of the pool or something like that. The guys on the jet skis, the water safety team, are a constant presence. They basically will follow along with people as they ride the waves. In the afternoon session, there was actually a photographer sitting on the back of the ski, who had been hired by somebody else, but I was able to get a couple of photos off of him. Cypress Coast Media is the name of that guy's Instagram account, and thanks to him for the images that I got. But yeah, basically you go from 7 in the morning till 7 o'clock. There's a lunch break from about 12 to 1. And yeah, I had 2 heats. Again, my first heat was at 10. My next one, I believe, was at 1 o'clock, and you're in the water for an hour at a time. So, get as many waves as you can get during that time. As for the wave itself, the wave is generated by an 100-ton sled that basically moves from one side of the basin to the other. when you first start, it's a left. The first wave in the morning is a left. It'll run the 1,000-foot length. I believe I read somewhere that the wavelength is 45 seconds from beginning to end. Then it'll stop at the other end. It'll wait for 4 minutes, during which time the basin, the water in the basin has a chance to kind of calm down. There's a number of kind of berms built into the side of the basin, which help to kind of disperse the backwash or any turbulence. But basically, once every 4 minutes, the sled will start up. There's a guy in the control tower who will give an announcement. He'll say, 30 seconds, basically. And, when you hear that, you know that the sled's going to start up in 30 seconds. The rights I found were quite a bit hollower than the lefts. On the lefts, they were more kind of almond shaped, and I found that I was able to get slightly longer rides on the lefts. The rights are a lot squarer, and unfortunately, most of the wave at the ranch is too fast to body surf. So basically, when I was, in the middle parts of the wave, especially on the right, it was kind of a negotiate the drop, enjoy the view, and then get a flogging. I had seen videos of some of the water safety team, especially Ryan Hargrave, who I would also like to thank for being helpful over the years in kind of giving me some information. And I hung out with him a little bit at the second contest and was able to meet the rest of the water safety team and give them a hand plane, because those guys like to body surf. So like I was saying, the bulk of the wave is a little too fast, but what Ryan was telling me was that if you sit at either end of it, a body surfer would be able to get a ride where you're able to make it out. I mentioned the poles a couple of minutes ago. Basically, he was saying around pole 80 for the right or pole 20 for the left is where you want to sit if you want to try to make the end section. But I found that it was probably more like pole 82 or pole maybe 18. When I took off at 20 and 80, I found I was still a little too deep, and even though I was kicking a lot, I wasn't able to make it out of the end. Obviously, guys like Mr. Hargrave have had a lot more opportunities to get that wave dialed. I didn't really have that much time, so even though I was certainly trying, I wasn't able to get into one that I was able to make it out of, which is fine. I was still very happy with it. But the wave has different sections. It's so long. The top part is what they call the pro takeoff, and basically it's kind of a bit crumblier. You have a chance to kind of get some speed, and then the next section closes in front of it, which you're either able to do an air over, or if you're good and going fast to get around it. But the bulk of the rest of the wave is kind of just a straight down the line barrel. There were two settings that they told us about called CT1 and CT2. One of them had a slower section in the middle with kind of barrel sections on either end of it, whereas the other one, which I think was CT1, was kind of much more of a straight down the line affair. The sled itself, which I found out that everyone who works there calls it Big Blue. That's the nickname they have for it. The sled itself is capable of producing a number of other waves. I heard there's like a Malibu or a Waikiki setting where basically it just goes really slow and creates kind of a crumbly beginner's wave. But when you book sessions at the ranch, they're running at full throttle. So the waves that we were getting were the same as they run in contests. They weren't turning it down at all, which was fun. But I also wonder whether or not they'd be able to adjust it to make a slightly slower wave for a body surfer. But you know, I was the only body surfer in the water, so I was kind of just going with what they threw at me. One other thing that I thought I would cover about the wave itself is kind of the difference between BSR and the ranch. With BSR, it kind of starts out as a little gurgle, and then the bottom drops out and it turns into a wave. Whereas with the ranch, you can definitely see it coming from way down the line. Kelly Sorensen from On the Beach, who's been to both places, had a good analogy that I'll share with you. He was saying that BSR is kind of a lot like a shore break, like a punchy shore break, whereas the ranch is definitely more like a point break. Like a longer period sort of wave. You can see it coming. You've got time to set up and get into place. Another thing that came to mind as I was doing this was some people commented when they looked at the videos that the takeoff seemed to launch me really deep, and then I was kind of trying to go after that. When they are giving you kind of the introduction to the wave in the morning, they're telling you to paddle or swim at a 45-degree angle to the kind of fence mesh barrier that separates you and the sled. So if you try to swim parallel or paddle parallel to the sled, you're probably not going to catch it. You've got to swim at an angle. The downside of that, as many of you noticed, is it does swing you really deep. At which point, you're then trying to do as best you can. Similar to my video about BSR, I figure I should go into the bottom at the surf ranch. It's also concrete. I know that was kind of a question that a lot of people had early on in terms of talking about what was on the bottom of the ranch, because it was kind of hard to tell from the early videos that came out. But it is concrete. If you look at the videos, especially now that the water is a little clearer, they were telling me that they've improved their filtration system. So, I think as recently as last year when you were looking at it, the water was fairly green, kind of, opaque. Whereas when I was there in December, it was a lot clearer. And you were able to kind of see that there was the concrete part of the bottom, and then in the shallower bit where you enter and exit, there is kind of a vinyl covering that's like a khaki color, like a light brown, that is on the edge of it. And it's textured, so it's not super slippery. But I think that the idea is that, if you were stuck in that, you wouldn't be sort of grinding along the concrete bottom. You'd be sliding along this kind of vinyl thing. When I was at BSR, I only encountered the bottom a couple of times. I lost a little bit of skin on my ankle and the side of my knee. It seemed like that wave was powerful enough that when I felt like I was going to hit the bottom, it felt like the water was pushing back on me, creating kind of a cushion. I would say that the ranch, especially on the right-hander, is definitely a lot more powerful. But I never had any issues at all, except for maybe one or two times with the bottom. When I came up, after riding a wave, I found that I was kind of just sliding along the bottom, either on my feet, which had fins on them, of course, or a combination of my hands and feet or whatever. So I never really had that much contact with the bottom at the ranch. I've heard stories of people breaking wrists and in some cases like collarbones there. There were no injuries when I was there. There was one kid. Well, there was one kid who pulled in and caught his board to his nose, ended up with a bloody nose, but after getting out for a little while, he got back in and kept charging, so kudos to him. But I think that injuries, having to do with the bottom seem to be few and far between. Even though it is concrete, I found that you didn't encounter it too much. One other thing that I thought I should cover is that by the fence or the mesh kind of barrier that separates you from Big Blue, it is pretty deep. It's got to be 8 or 10 feet deep. Whereas, when I was in the middle parts of the wave, I wasn't able to touch, so it was, fairly deep there. At the end sections, it gets quite a bit shallower. When I was sitting at 80 and 20, I was able to stand, and probably some of you have seen the video or the image where I was kind of standing there doing this, watching come toward me. So yeah, at the end bit, it does get quite a bit shallower. But again, I didn't have any problems with it at all. If I were to offer anybody any tips or advice, especially in terms of equipment, if you're going during the winter, which is, when it's less expensive, as I was saying, definitely bring at least like a 4-3. Because when we got there, the air temperature was probably like 38 degrees. The water temperature was probably 48. The air temperature did warm up through the day, but the water temperature never really did. So the water's cold. So definitely, if you like booties, bring booties. For sure, bring a warmer wetsuit. One thing that I noticed between BSR and the ranch, at BSR you're required to have any surf device that you have with you leashed to you, whereas at the ranch they don't really seem to worry about that too much. Everybody who had bodyboards or surfboards had leashes, but they didn't require me to have one. It was only an issue, actually, the very first right-hander that I got, which was my second wave. The hand plane popped off my hand, which is pretty unusual. Usually the only time that happens is if it's a pretty powerful wave and the lip lands right on my hand. But when I came up, it was sitting right next to me, so it wasn't really an issue. And I would imagine even if it was, somebody on one of the jet skis would probably come and help you out. In terms of hand planes, I was actually kind of surprised. I brought one of my smaller experimentals, which I thought would work really well. It worked very well at BSR. It was probably my favorite hand plane. That one is number 232, which is the one that got run over by a car. Otherwise, I'd show it to you. 232 performed really well at BSR, but it didn't really perform as well as I hoped at the ranch. The one that really did perform well was the Mini Mother here. This is the larger version. I make it in 2 other versions, and I've always thought this one was a little too big. I think it's about 13 inches, but I feel like at the ranch you really need all the speed you can get, and especially on the lefts, which you were able to ride a little longer. The slightly larger hand plane did help quite a bit, so that was kind of a surprise. In terms of swim fins, I brought a pair of yuccas to the ranch, and I also brought my Viper V5s. I didn't end up the first session I wore the V5s. I was gonna wear the yuccas on the second session, but yuccas run a bit big for me, and I was worried that they were gonna get blasted off my feet. And at a place like that, you want to have full confidence in your equipment. And I probably could have put some leashes on the yuccas, but basically for the entire session, I I just stuck with my my V5s. I actually kind of wish that I had brought my V7s, because like at BSR, the wave comes up on you so quickly. You want to fin with kind of really quick, snappy acceleration. At the ranch, you have so much time when the wave is coming towards you that I feel like a larger fin probably would have done better. Um, again, at the ranch, you really need all the speed that you can get. So I kind of wish that I had brought my sevens with me. I think that I might have, I don't know that it would have made a huge difference, but again, speed is your friend at the ranch. So if I ever have a chance to go again, I'll definitely bring V7s or maybe some UDTs or something like that. I think those would probably work pretty well there, given their size. In closing, I kind of just wanted to touch on a little bit of the vibe around the ranch, which is pretty cool. You're there from 7 in the morning to 7 at night, and you're only really in the water for 2 hours. So you've got a bit of downtime. Some of that downtime obviously can be spent, watching other people ride the wave. They do have cameras at either end of the basin that record each one of the waves ridden. So you part of the package is you do get a link from where you can download the footage of you riding, which is kind of cool. I was lucky enough to have an old buddy of mine, Chris Walker, there, who was on the side kind of filming his own videos of me, some of which turned out to be my favorite footage of the trip, actually. But in the meantime, they've got bicycles and skateboards that you can kind of borrow and ride around on. A good portion of the basin has a concrete sidewalk around it, for skateboarding. We ended up, me and Walker, a lot of the people were hanging out down at the end of the basin where the main buildings were at. But on the other end of the basin is another kind of little gazebo area with, deck chairs and stuff like that. So Walker and I ended up borrowing bikes and riding down to that other end because there was nobody down there. So we hung out down there for a little while and were able to sort of just kind of, soak the vibe up of the place to ourselves. The staff at the ranch really goes out of their way to make it almost kind of like a resort experience, which you would hope so given the cost of entry. So the breakfast that you're given is high quality. The lunch and the dinner are also really good. There's free drinks throughout the day, which include things like water, coconut milk, sodas, beer or wine if you want. At the end of the day, after it's dark and they shut down the pool, they give out an award for like wave of the day. There was a woman who was bodyboarding there. They were saying that they don't get a lot of women bodyboarders that come there, so she got wave of the day, which was awesome. We kind of had a little bit of a party down there toward the end. They've got a fire pit, down there, which they light up during the winter that helps keep warm. But, overall, the vibe of the place was really good, and all of the staff definitely went out of their way to make it a terrific experience. So, again, if I have a chance to go in the future, I certainly will. I kind of don't see myself paying for it again, but you never know. We'll see. I think that's everything. Again, if there's anything I didn't cover and you guys have any questions, feel free to let me know. But other than that, just wanted to say thank you for watching.